This is Nan McKay, and I would like to introduce you today to Dr. Nadine Collins. She is a prolific speaker who has traveled to 80 countries and spoken in hundreds of cities throughout the US. Maybe also Canada, I think, Europe, Asia, Africa, and even the Caribbean. She's on a fearless mission to help more faith-based women break free from indoctrination, fear, and anything that sets barriers to their advancement. One of her favorite sayings to women is, if you hang out with me long enough, I'll brainwash you into believing that you can do anything. I love that, Nadine. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much, Nan, for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, you are a woman of many talents. Tell us about your mission on building and empowering women in the area of leadership, prayer, and purpose.
Yeah, wow, that just encapsulates everything about what I do, really, these three areas. So as it relates to prayer, which I will start with, because it's the foundation of what I do, I have this interesting story about, growing up with a grandmother who was really very committed to her relationship with God. And as a young girl growing up, I would always see her just do amazing things, provide for us, even though she had a meager salary. I couldn't understand how we never missed anything. In fact, we always had new outfits for every party we had to attend. And, for special occasions, we never missed a meal. We never had to cut down on how much we get on a plate. And I couldn't understand how she did that kind of stuff. But so when I looked at her life, it seemed to be so deeply rooted in prayer, because she spent so much time praying. And I remember when she was on her dying bed, she had this red book with a gold cross on the top cover. And I envied that book because it was a little prayer book, because I thought she was so powerful in terms of the way that she lived, in her influence, even though she was just a normal little old lady working in a bakery. But every time people needed inspiration, they would come to her. In fact, when she was sick, people would come to her, they would come to see her, and everyone would say, we came to see her to encourage her, but instead she encouraged us. So there was something about her that I really admired, and I wanted that. I wanted something that she had. And I realized after she passed away and everything, and I had to make a decision of what I do with my life now without her guidance, that I really wanted to emulate what I saw my grandmother doing. I wanted to become a powerful woman of prayer as well. And so having that desire based on her example allowed me now to go on my own journey of faith to really understand, okay, how do I build that relationship? How do I make that relationship practical? How do I experience the blessings of just that type of relationship? And that's what I did, which brought me into every other area of my life. That's why I started there, because it's really the foundation of who I am as a woman, as a coach, as an international speaker, as an author, because prayer is my foundation. And I tell my clients all the time, it's my number one business strategy. All right. It's my number one business strategy. It's how I get my downloads. It's how I get direction on what to do, how to do. I would sometimes be laying in bed and just, talking to God in my mind, and ideas just pop, and I just have to get up and I have to write them on paper. And so it's really my strategy for success, which brings me to what I did as it relates to, for example, my doctoral research focus, where I studied women in top leadership. Now, I never intended to study women in leadership. In fact, from undergrad to my master's program and throughout my PhD program, all of my research, my papers, my focus, because in undergrad, I was in an honors program. And in the honors program, we had to do a thesis. And so there you're getting the experience of doing research, even though you're only an undergrad student. And my focus was really on speech language, the need for speech language therapists in St. Lucia. And so my focus, I branched out when I did my master's to focus again on special ed. And in my PhD program, really looking into that area, since it's such an area that is overlooked in the Caribbean region, where at the time, there were no people who were serving in these types of areas, or serving people who have needs in the areas of speech pathology, audiology, occupational therapy, and so on. So I had that interest, and I built and built and built. And so everything that I did, every paper that I wrote, everything was about building that master plan that could be used in, for example, the Seventh-day Adventist Global Church, which has over 114 universities and schools serving K-12 and so on. So that was the passion I had. That was my focus. Nowhere in the mix was it about women until my advisor left without any information interactions with me. And I found myself just exposed. And all of my colleagues had already been progressing in terms of their proposals, their defenses of their proposals, approvals of these proposals. And there I was with nothing. And so what did I do? I fell on what I'm accustomed, which was prayer. And I went into that mode to find out, what am I supposed to do? I've done all of this foundational work from undergrad to now, just to ensure that I am the expert when I'm done, right? And nothing. And so I prayed, and then again, God led. One day I went to visit a professor to bring her some roses. I didn't know her personally, but she taught me, and I heard that she was ill for a few weeks. And so I loved to buy roses for women. I love to buy roses for myself. I love to give it to women as well, because sometimes they don't have anybody giving them flowers. And I went to bring 6 roses for her. And that is where everything changed. She invited me in. In fact, her husband said, she said to come in, even though she had not been seeing visitors. And she allowed me to come inside and ask me, so what's happening now? And I explained my predicament of my advisor leaving. And she said, have you considered, studying women in top leadership in the Adventist universities globally? And I said, no. And right there, she said, wait, went into her library and came back with thick folders with literature, and also gave me her doctoral dissertation and said, you could read through that stuff. And I left her home with very clear direction. To the day of my prayer of asking, by the end of that week, I needed to have very clear direction of where I was going. And there I had it, not only an idea, but now I had literature in abundance to be able to do that. So that took me into leadership, women in leadership. And then the purpose part is just personally what I've been driving me all my life, ensuring that I'm always relevant, and that relevance is always linked to, I need to be doing what I was brought here into the world to do. So literally being in women, serving women, and in that purpose work that I'm doing, all of it stems from the work that I believe that I've been called to do, to serve Christian women globally.
Well, you talked about how you discovered your purpose. How does a person actually discover their purpose?
Yeah, really nice question. And I get that a lot because I think a lot of times, because we grew up in societies where, especially from my background, coming from the Caribbean, where there is a very heavy emphasis on education. And in St. Lucia, it's a big thing. We have this philosophy that education is the way to success, that you need to go to school, get good grades, get a good job, etc. It's the path to freedom. That's what we're taught: the path to success, the path to become wealthy, the path to anything that you're thinking of. Is education. So I have no problem with education. I am a proponent of education. I am an educator myself because I'm an adjunct faculty member. I teach master's and PhD students. I have no problem with education. But one of the things that I've learned throughout life thus far is that even though our parents and grandparents were well-meaning in their push and their thrust for us to become educated, I believe that they missed something significant, which is that pursuit that we need to have of why we're here in the world, that purpose. And so when I speak to people, when I work with clients to find like what is my purpose, we go past your education, because most of my clients would be people who would have gone to school, masters, most of them into PhDs and so on, but always feeling that there is something missing. Just yesterday in my lunchtime series, I interviewed a client and very dear friend of mine, who is also from the same island, same community, grew up in the same church with me, highly educated, postdoctoral work and all that stuff, and was still feeling as if even though success was there and everybody viewed her as successful, and she had it all going for her, but there was always this sense of more. And instead of maybe going in the path of purpose, what she did was actually begin to acquire more degrees. And so now she has postdoctoral work. Then during the pandemic, she did nursing at Johns Hopkins, and she was about to go to med school. And I said, we need to talk. And I'm like, you are going to continue to do more and more of these things because that's what we were taught. So we wired to believe, okay, let me just get a little more education, another degree, another. I know the feeling because I still want to do law. You understand? So I know the desire to want to study more because we have so many dreams, right? And so she was on that path until I said, let's have a chat and let's just begin to explore, which is what I take people through you. Because if we go down to the bottom of this purpose thing, it always boils down to something that is the nearest thing to you that you have probably overlooked, or something that was already with you that you recognize, but you thought, okay, maybe that's a hobby, or maybe it's just something I like to do. It's not something that's going to bring me success. And a lot of us push our purpose on the side, thinking it's a hobby, thinking it's a side thing. Maybe it's just something I enjoy. And so with this example of my very good friend, it's just really that path that I take people through in exploring you. And when we look at purpose, we're looking at the things that maybe you're naturally good at. We're looking at things that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, things that light you up. Things that probably is at the top of your mind, no matter how much money you're making and how successful you are. In the back of your head, there is this thing that you're saying, man, I believe, I really love this thing, but we always put these buts because we're thinking it's not going to bring me success. Why? Because maybe I went to school and so much money was invested in me, or I spent so much money and I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans. And so I need to be working in this field. But there you have purpose calling you. And how you know that purpose is calling, it's because you're dissatisfied. No matter how much success you have, how much six figures you make, how much of this and that, how much, you're just not at peace because there is something more that you need to do. And that exploration, sometimes it's the nearest thing to you, something that you may have overlooked. And that's really what I ask people. What are you good at? What are your good experiences? What are your bad experiences? What are things that you went through maybe that you feel are not good enough for you to share with people? Because sometimes purpose does not always show up in the good stuff. It could be in something that was a struggle for you, that you have overcome, and then you're now able to assist people. And it's more than just a career, because careers, you could make the money from doing it, but the purpose, you have a drive. And what I like about purpose is that when you're operating in what you're meant to do, which is your purpose, which is, I think, the best way that we can live, because when you're living in purpose, you're living in alignment with yourself. You're living in alignment with the divine thing that you were brought here to do. And I believe that more of us need to go in pursuit of what that thing is versus trying to fit into norms, trying to fit into what we were told we should do, how we should do it in order to define success.
Nadine, I think one of the problems that I see in talking to a lot of people is a woman gets in their, let's say, late 40s or into their 50s, and they start feeling that, oh my gosh, I haven't met my purpose, and I've been doing this thing for so long and I'm dissatisfied with it. Mm-hmm. But they also feel caught in a box, because if they are the primary breadwinner and they've got children at home and they're in a profession that, pays the bills and pays it fairly well, then they feel trapped in that they feel that purpose bubbling up in another area, but they kind of think, well, I better slog it out because I can't get enough money in the area that is my purpose area in order to feed the family and keep the house mortgage going and all that stuff. Would you address that?
That's real. That's so real. Because just this morning, well, last evening, a friend and I was texting back and forth. She's also a PhD, working at a university, and we were going back and forth for about 2 hours. And I called her this morning. We were speaking to exactly what you just asked about, because she is the main breadwinner in her home right now. Her husband is unemployed. She has 2 sons. One is in college, and she's working hard at her university, not being valued the way that she should be valued or recognized, but very unhappy as well in the job. But she's like, but I need to make the money now. So we were talking about that, and a lot of women find themselves there. My client that I just spoke about earlier on as well is in her early 40s and was at that place and just had to make the drastic move. Like, I just cannot continue doing that. That's why she actually dropped out of her multiple 6-figure job to even go to nursing school because of that same thing. So a lot of times women do find themselves at that place that I really, because my friend last evening, she said to me, I know what my purpose is, but I need this job. I need to pay the bills. My family is depending on me. What am I supposed to do? And so we spoke about that today, because I was saying to her, I understand where you are, and I do not want to disregard the fact that your family is dependent on you. But what I want to say is, when we're tired enough because when you're aware of why you're here and you're ignoring it, I call that the greatest self-betrayal ever. Is for you to be doing what you know you're not supposed to be doing because it pays the bills. Because it keeps the lights on, but it does not keep you lit on. You're not excited about life. You're going through life. And so every day you're betraying yourself because you're aware that you're here for more. You know that you're supposed to be doing more than what you're doing. So yes, the job might pay the bills. It might seem to be, okay, taking care of things, but it's destroying you because you're not at peace. You don't feel ease. Every day you go to work, you're not happy. And so imagine we're going to work and making the money to pay the bills and betraying ourselves every single day and thinking that I have to, because I must take care of things, but you're not being taken care of. And that's why so many of us maybe even get sick and so on. It's because there's this, we're poisoning our system every day because we're just trying to live. Now, when we in a position like that, we have to take into account everything, but I believe that it's at that point in our lives, at that juncture, we have to take massive leaps of faith into the unknown. That's where it's going to really push you to limits and really take steps as to, okay, I could continue doing this. How long am I going to continue to betray myself, doing this thing to pay a bill, doing this thing to pay the mortgage, to get through this and that, and not be happy? Or am I willing to step out in faith to explore what I'm supposed? Because the truth is, whatever we're called to do, we are also equipped to do it. We may not always feel that way because we're not aware of what we're not aware of what we're supposed to do. But when we go into that purpose journey and you find what you're supposed to do, you will realize, if you look back at your life, all of the experiences that you've had, no matter how weird they were, sometimes even the trainings that we do, everything begins to work together, and you realize that it was preparing you all the time to do what you're supposed to do. So we're not losing anything along the way. We're actually gathering more experience. But the thing is, we want to get to our purpose path as early as possible. And so, yes, you have to pay the bills. Yes, you have responsibilities, but we could go on that quest of how could I transition out of this thing that I don't like into creating success, into what I'm called to do. Because the greatest success that any of us can experience is when we're operating in our divine purpose, when we're doing what we're supposed to do, what is aligned with us, because you wake up every day excited. You wake up every day knowing that you're going to make a difference. You may not feel good every day. I don't feel good today, but I'm excited right now. So feeling good is on the back burner because I'm speaking about something I'm excited about. And it's the same way I feel when I meet with my clients. No matter how I feel, as soon as I get into that space, I'm lit. I'm excited. I have energy because purpose is its own motivation. In my latest book, I speak about it like that. Its own motivation, its own inspiration, and all purpose will do is keep on giving you because you're operating in your realm. And so now all you're doing is finding more ways to create and create so you can amplify more and more your impact and your brilliance.
You said an interesting word, and that word is transition.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think I hear people saying is it's hard to jump, to take that leap from a financially secure area into an area that looks like it is very insecure or low. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to make that. Is there a way that people can transition without taking the leap, or do you think really you have to go from one side to the other?
Right, that's really beautiful question. Crazy Nadine don't believe in transitions. I just do. So when I became vegan, I didn't have to go through no transition stage. Let me just phase out this one meatless Mondays. No. I just go from, okay, this is what I need to get done. This is it. I'm done. I take these massive steps of faith, but I know everybody is not there. And so for some people, as I said to my friend earlier today, and I from last evening was texting her the same thing, it's that I understand your situation. So what I would suggest for you is that if you're not at that place where you can just take a massive step of faith and just go into the unknown, just trusting that you're being led, if you're not at that place, you may want to begin to scale back on what draws your time, your efforts, your energy, your emotions. Because a lot of time, what happens to us when we're operating in these jobs that we don't feel satisfied in, that we're not happy to be in because we know we're not supposed to be there. Even when you don't know why, you just have the feeling that this is not it. And every day your body tells you this is not it, because when you're operating in it, you feel ease. And so if you're not at that place, you can scale back, begin now to see how you can create some sort of foundation around that purpose, whatever you're called to do. So for example, a lot of my clients would come into the program, but they are in their jobs. And so they're still in the corporate roles, they're still in the corporate jobs, but they're coming online every week for us to build their speaking platforms and transitioning more and more out of what they're doing. So I'm thinking of one of my clients who just wrote today to tell me that she has 2 online speaking engagements in March, and she has 2 in-person ones in New York and Florida, and she's so excited, and she has a full-time business. But she came into my speaker program with 2 under 5-year-old kids, and also was able to write her book both in English and Spanish, while still doing that, because what we were trying to do behind the scenes was to build her speaking platform and her credibility so that she could transition more into full-time speaking, which is what is happening now. Others of my clients, like the present cohort I'm working with, are all employed, and they're building their speaking platforms. And so they can now on the side take more. One of my clients in the UK, that's what she's doing. She's doing less hours in nursing, focusing a few more hours more on building her speaking. She takes Thursdays off just so we can work together. And now she's doing less hours. So somebody could literally transition into either doing less hours on the job, less commitments in other things that are not feeding into your purpose, and spend these times building what can I create with that, and begin to now work on it so that you can transition yourself from your job into you operating in a space that makes you much more comfortable. So we have 2 paths to take. You can choose either one.
So Nadine, is that an example of how you would define success in the context of purpose?
You can find success in purpose at any point. Whether you transition into it or whether you just take that leap of faith, it will all depend on your commitment to building yourself. And so in that particular area, so we're called to it, you find out what it is you're meant to do, then you commit to it, because success is not going to just show up if we don't do the work. And so we have to get the work done. And so a lot of people will think, okay, well, because I'm called to do it, then that means, yes, it will flow naturally. We'll have a lot because of everything that we're doing. However, if you have a spirit of excellence, if you want to do things well, then you will prepare. You will ensure. That's the reason why, for example, in the speaker program, we work on building your speech. We work on building speaking assets. We do everything that you will need. Why? There's a reason. Because success is not going to come to you. Because even when you have everything that you need to launch a successful speaking business, for example, if you do not put yourself out there, nobody will find you. If you don't do the work to reach out to people, to look for organizations that you're going to email and calls that you're going to make and text messages or DMs that you're going to send, you're just going to be there with all of the good stuff doing nothing. So at the end of the day, success requires commitment. It requires work. And once we do the work, the success will follow. And the more we do a great work in terms of foundation, the more work we do at the foundation, the less work we'll have to do when we're building, because we have something that's strong. And so it's really about that commitment to excellence, that commitment to success, because it's guaranteed when you do the work.
Let's say we have a woman who wants to stay in business and just move to a higher level. What traits and maybe strategies do you think that women need to rise to that higher level in business?
Okay, so if a woman wants to rise higher, I want to ask a really strange question, because sometimes we want to rise higher in organizations, but we're not in the right place anyway. But we've been wired to believe that I need to get to the next level and the next level, a promotion, because it validates me and my worth within an organization, not necessarily actually leading me to my place of purpose, but rather just status. But if a woman wants to get it, because I'm purpose driven, and I believe I've always been, because I when I was finishing up my PhD, I was very clear with God, and I said, if you don't have a purpose for me at this stage of my life, I prefer to die. I do not want to be alive just going to a job to get money to pay bills. I believe I'm created for more. That is going to make me go crazy just to think that's my motivation for a job. But if somebody's in an institution, they're in a corporation and they're wanting to get more, I would say, again, there needs to be a commitment to excellence. That if you want to rise high, I know we may not always be recognized or validated or valued. However, I believe in the spirit of excellence. And so from my personal experience, when I worked at a university, even though I did not have the budget for me to manage the number of students that I had as the Dean of Commuter Students, it did not prevent me from wanting to have the best programs. So I would make personal sacrifices. I would also connect with, network with organizations who can help so that I could bring the best to students, because I wanted to ensure that whatever my hands touch, it's done with excellence, that it's done well. So if a woman wants to go to that next level, it's really about committing to being your best self and producing the best, not just for the promotion, but just for you.
Well, that topic of being the best brings me to your Wow Life magazine. Oh. That is really a great magazine. Tell us about how that got started. What was your idea? What do you want to do with it?
Yes, so the Wow Life magazine, because my goal is to help women live their wow life now. And people ask, what is wow? It's not an acronym. It's really the word where you're living the life that is aligned with you, and you're always having these amazing experiences, and you're like, wow. People are like, wow, oh my gosh, wow. right? That's just it. So even in my prayer series, I have the Wow Prayer series. I have five books in that series already. Number 6 is on the way, and so on. And the Wow Life magazine, I wanted to create something that could highlight women who are taking action, these Christian women who are stepping out, because it takes a lot for Christian women to step out of what they were taught, that role of, oh, you're supposed to be a wife, a mom. And you know, maybe people might make you think, okay, you could do more, but they don't really have these highest and greatest expectations. But I wanted to honor women who were actually stepping outside of the norms, outside of the indoctrinations, and wanting to become. And so the magazine was actually birthed from that desire. So in every issue, we feature all of the Wow ladies within a period of time. So usually we do it biannually. So we do July and December. So we would honor all of the women who took action from January to July, and those who take action from August to December. We feature all of them there. We tell their stories. We also get people to contribute based on the theme of the magazine. I look for contributors who can write articles that these women can read as well. And so just imagine just this everyday woman who never thought she would become anything in life featured in a magazine. They're like, I'm in a magazine. They feel good. It's something that makes them feel really good. And again, with excellence, you want to make sure you have the best. It's a free magazine. They don't have to pay any money to be in it. Nobody pays to put contributions in it. I literally publish it myself because I want to make sure that I help women to really understand that they can be their best. And the photos, for example, all my clients have to do photo shoots at some point. And so they're able to see their transition from what their photos were before and after they go through a program to see, you know, the high quality photos. I encourage them to dress up in gowns. At the end of the year, I do a wow empowerment event. Even though it's virtual, we started in 2020. Wear the gowns and the high heels, even though we're on Zoom. It's about living that wow life. It's really enjoying every area of your life.
Let me take it into a different genre a little bit. What about women, let's say over 60, who have been working in a career for a long time, finally get to that point where they say, okay, done with that. And they kind of go into a hiatus where, oh my gosh, who am I now? It's kind of an identity.
Yes.
But it's also a question of, I'm really not done yet. You know, my life is not over, but what in the world do I do? What do I do now? What advice do you have for those women, let's say over 60, 65, who are looking for that next step?
I am so excited you asked that question. It's everything is so aligned with what you're asking me today with my week. So I'm telling you, this is just insane. So my client who I just mentioned, who has the 4 speaking engagements next month, she's originally from Dominican Republic. The woman who taught her English when she just came here, she wrote me about this week. I met that lady at her book launch. She wrote and said, I need you to call this lady because she is 50 days from retirement and she wants to know what to do next with her life.
Yeah.
So we had a phone call night before, and she was saying to me, I've been teaching for over 30 years. It's almost like I have all the perfect examples for you just this week, right? I've been teaching for over 30 years. She had 1 daughter. When I met her last year at that book launch, she told me that her daughter went on a hike in the California mountains and her daughter died up there. Her only daughter. So now she's near retirement. It's now 40-something days away, school days away. And she's saying to me, I want a new life. I always said I was going to move to Arizona. That was the plan my daughter and I had. Now she's gone. I have nobody. I have nothing. And I was thinking that I could probably move to Panama or Portugal. I'm not sure, but I need a new life. And so here we are with her in her 60s, almost retired. And she's finishing in May. And she's like, what's next? And I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know where to begin to even know what to do with myself. That's why I believe that my client Raquel gave her the number. I said, okay, so let's talk a little bit. So she's like, I've never planned. I never had a personal goal in my life. All my goals were professional goals. What do I do now? And so we began to talk a little about just exploring, what can you do? How can you continue to make a difference? No matter where you move to, because you still have to live with you. You won't sit every day doing nothing. So what contributions can you make at this stage of your life was my question to her that could really impact the lives of others. And there was the story of her daughter. I said, have you thought about the fact that you can now use your voice to be able to help people who have lost loved ones who did? Because I remember clearly when we spoke at that book launch, she was saying to me, I never knew that last time I said I love you would have been the last time I said I love you. And I said to her, can you imagine the number of people's lives you can change by letting them know the importance of that I love you, because you just never know when it's the last one. And so we're just talking about what her future can look like in terms of maybe her building that speaking platform, being that voice. And so I think for women who are retired, who are that age, this is the beginning of the best years of your life, because now you can create the life that you want. You might be doing things that you never thought you could have done in this life ever. And so I would say, embrace this stage of your life, because this stage of your life is not going to be ruled by norms and indoctrinations and people's expectations. You've gone past that. You're free now to live the life that you want, whatever that is. Design it, live it, enjoy it.
That sounds great. Well, Nadine, it's been so much fun talking with you. Where could people find you if they're at that place of maybe wanting to live a life of purpose?
Yes, I'm on social media, on Instagram.
Tell them about your website.
All right, my website is nadinecollins.com. That's www.nadine, N-A-D-I-N-E, nadinecollins.com. You can also find me on Facebook. You could Google me. You will find me on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere. Once you just put my name, Nadine Collins, Dr. Nadine Collins, you will find me. You could also email me at nadine@nadinecollins.com if you really want to chat, or info@nadinecollins.com. And I mean, I'm excited to have just been able to share. I hope somebody was inspired. And if you want to get more information, you want a free resource about uncovering your divine purpose, I have resources I could share with you. Reach out to me at nadine@nadinecollins.com or info@nadinecollins.com, or just find me on social media and send me a message.
And they could go to your site and sign up for the WOW magazine.
Oh yes, definitely. You wanna subscribe to the WOW magazine, because you will be inspired as you read these stories of women who just everyday women just beginning to make a massive difference in the world. And you can be one of these ladies.
And you know what else they can do? They can look at all those fabulous clothes that you wear in that magazine and go, I want that one. So thank you so much. It has been fun, and it sounds like you are really you have found your purpose, and you're making a difference in the lives of others.
Yes, I'm grateful for that every day. That finding mine can help me let other people find theirs. That's the best life I could live. That's the WOW life.
That's the WOW life.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.